And my original premise of my talk was talking about how digital marketing's broken, and that was going to be my thoughts and some ideas around that. But actually, I think that's not really the way I want to frame my talk. And I want to frame my talk more around, I think our view of digital marketing has broken slightly. And what I mean by that is we've lived in a world in the last 10 years, and the internet's grown up from a very technical base. When we look at how the internet started, which we'll in a second, it's all very detailed, it's all very analytical, it's all very numbers driven, it's all very, it's not people driven. And the internet is a place now where we all have mobile phones, we all have social media presences of some sort. And we now need to be thinking of a digital world and digital marketing much more about people than spreadsheets and numbers and programming. So data is very, very important, but it shouldn't be the way that we should be viewing our digital marketing. It should be giving insight, and we should be making judgments based upon that sometimes, but also using our gut instinct. You know, we are people, we should know our audience better than anyone else, better than sometimes what the numbers suggest. So I just want you to leave today here with your thoughts being challenged about how you view digital marketing and how you view your approach to it, and hopefully from today you'll be able to do things slightly differently. And why have we got to a point where digital marketing is so numbers driven, so analytical? It's because Google is God. To a lot of our clients and a lot of businesses in the UK and around the world, Google is God. Their business is based on Google bringing them leads and business and traffic. And if Google goes pop, Google decides they don't like them, Google cuts the traffic off, then that business is almost redundant overnight. And unfortunately, lots and lots of businesses are very reliant on Google to drive them forward. But in a people age in which we are in now and coming to even more, we don't have to rely on Google to drive our business and be, providing all the leads and sales. We actually have people that we can interact with, communicate with, and they can drive the business in a very different way without having to necessarily rely on them. So yes, Google is very important, but we need to be looking at other places like social networks where actually audiences are spending their time. This is a couple of years old, this slide, but so the numbers are very low in comparison to the reality of today. But it gives you, again, some idea about the gender splits between some of these social networks and the fact that you can reach almost every audience that you want to using these channels that are there. You don't just have to rely on one box and someone typing or potentially in the future speaking into it to get in front of those people. They are across the web. We just need to think more about them and try and target them better. So I want you to live today thinking more about digital marketing as who are the people that I need to be interacting with, where are they, what do they spend their time on, rather than necessarily thinking about what data can I collect and how do I analyse that and make decisions based upon it. So to look forward, I always like to look back and see where we've come from. How did we end up where we are today, and what decisions have happened to get to the place where we're thinking of digital marketing primarily about numbers and spreadsheets. It started in the late 80s, I guess, with Tim Berners-Lee. And if you don't know much about Tim Berners-Lee, as I didn't, apart from he was at the Olympics, and he was the one that everyone remembers when you ask anyone around the world, he actually started the idea of the internet in Bournemouth, which is fascinating because that's where we're based and where lots of businesses in the room today are probably based. His idea of connecting all these computers together came from research that he did with some other colleagues down in Bournemouth, and that spawned the idea of this HTTP, hypertext protocol, blah, 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 and connecting things together. And back in those days, the web was static documents which were hyperlinked together with the blue text in Times New Roman. And then from a digital marketing perspective, people realised that this internet thing might be quite powerful, and perhaps there's a way I can navigate people who are online to my website. So AT&T produced the first ever clickable banner in 1994. This was the first ever banner advertisement ever produced. And in those days, as I say, navigating was quite hard, and this advert you could click on and it would take you to another website, which was revolutionary less than 20 years ago. The click-through rate on this banner advert was phenomenal because no one had ever seen anything like it before. If you do banner advertising today, most businesses don't really do it, but if you do it, you expect click-through rates of 0.5% sometimes. That's 100 people would see your advert, not one of them would click on it, on average. The click-through rate of this banner advert was 44%. So when they put that up, it was phenomenally successful. And over the years, we just got blind to that. So we became more used to less looking at adverts and actually being driven advertising-wise by things that we were interested in. And then Google launched Adwords in 2000. This is roughly what it looked like. Nice big green boxes, very obvious where you're clicking to go to the paid adverts. Nowadays, it's not quite so much. But it's the first time we could attach our business to particular words where people were showing some intent to do something, buy something, order something, or find some research about stuff. And we could commoditize this and drive people through to our website. If you don't know much about Google AdWords, it's not an idea that they came up with. They borrowed the idea from a company called Ink2Me, which is then bought by Yahoo. So AdWords is just something that someone else had done, but they'd done it much, much better and obviously had the scale to make it work. And at the time of 2000, people were building websites in their bedrooms, charging people thousands and thousands of pounds to produce web pages. And we lived in a world of 1.0. This is supposedly the world's worst website ever. As you can see, this is not particularly nice looking. And that's how websites were back in the early 2000s. Because they were put together by technical people who knew how to code and not really given any thought about the user experience, about design, about branding, etc., etc. So we live still in a very a technical age, and from a primitive search engine point of view, Google were the best of the bunch, but they still relied on stuff like this, or we still, as marketeers, relied on looking at keyword ratios and numbers of content on pages, which were basically there just to try and engineer the rankings to our favour. So you had people using search engine optimization techniques like this, where they just stuffed keywords into the web page, Google picked it up, and again it came up. And how did we know how much to put in, or where did we put it? It was all done by analytical decisions rather than using some sort of creativity in our marketing and giving content that our users actually wanted. This was all done for the search engines. And then we got to a point in around the mid-2000s where the technical barriers to publishing on the web were gradually reduced. And we had things like Blogger, live journals around, if you still remember that one. And then we had things like Myspace, which allowed you to publish your own content online. And again, you could do that, and it wasn't particularly hard to do, but the techies made it quite hard sometimes to understand what's going on. This is just a very bad example of a Myspace page. And because of some of the technical things that were involved in Myspace, it became less popular. They failed to innovate. Things like Facebook started to take over Myspace because they were slightly less technical, and the content that people were producing was much more engaging than the stuff on Myspace. So yes, you could customize your Myspace to look how you wanted, but people didn't really care about if you had green or blue background. They wanted to know what pictures you had of you and your friends, or what you had to say. And so this content that people put onto Facebook really drove it. And when they created the news feed, that was the tipping point where people actually became almost addicted to getting new stuff from their friends, in inverted commas. So then it became much more about people, and rather than the technology about how content was produced. So because of that history of Google and analysing data and publishing stuff and technical HTML coding and keyword ratios, it was all very numbers driven, all very technical driven. And I want you to hopefully come away today and think about changing your view, perhaps if you still have that view of how you view digital marketing, to be something slightly different. So I think the future of digital marketing is all about people. And we've already talked today about how Google potentially personalise that experience in a one-to-one relationship. And for us as marketeers, that's the ultimate power, I guess, that we can have. If I know specifically what Andy wants, what his family does, where he lives, where he goes to work, I can say exactly what Andy wants because I know everything about him. And the only way we do that is by collecting data. So the future of advertising and marketing, according to Tim Armstrong, the chairman of AOL, CEO of AOL, is in data. We can't be marketeers unless we have data to back up our decisions and make decisions. But I think that's slightly clinical as a view. Data is generated by people. If I don't know who my audience is, then I don't know what that data means. I have no relevance to it. Am I looking at the right thing or the wrong thing? So I really want data to be connected, and we must, as a business, connect our data to make more sense of it. Quite often we go to our clients and there's a marketing team working independent of the sales team, which is working independent of the finance team and a customer service point of view. And so none of that information is shared, unfortunately. And it needs to be for us to really understand our audience. And there's also too much data. Again, Adriano touched upon this, and it's quite a big thing for me. I think there is too much data around at the moment. CEOs report in this infographic, which I found, that about 44% of them say there is too much data to actually use. Data is produced on a daily basis, hourly basis, minute basis, second basis. But so what? If I can't understand that, if I can't get some insight from that, it's worthless information to me. And marketers have, in the last 3 to 5 years, been powered by data and almost become obsessed with it. And I want us to think much more about the people that sit behind that. And also the data we've got is gradually becoming less reliable, I think, unfortunately. This is Google Analytics, and if you know much about what they've done in the last year and a half, maybe you've heard me talk or you know much about what's going on, Google decided to encrypt the search strings that people typed in when they clicked on the organic listings. So when the website visitor landed on the page, we now have no idea almost what that person typed in to get to the website. So the data on the blue line shows the overall organic traffic coming to the website, the people clicking on the free listings on the left. And the yellow line shows the amount of traffic coming through that I have no idea what the search string was when they came to my website. And they made a big change about a month ago where that number has gone from roughly 50% of all searches coming to more like 80, 90%. So in the next 12 months, we're going to see a massive shift of the way that we view particularly search SEO traffic and organic traffic coming to our website, because now we have no idea what generated it because of the not provided problem. So we have to not only rely on this data less, we also have to change the way that we look at some of the measurements we currently use and have used historically. So you think, well, that's data that is, okay, it's changing, but what about social data, right? It's all about people, but you can fake profiles, and there's an article, when I was putting this presentation together, I found, where Barack Obama apparently has 20 million fake Twitter followers. So when you look at Barack Obama, he was always heralded as this social media best practice because that's how he won the election, they claimed, in 2008 or 9, whenever it was. But actually, some of that stuff that was created was probably fake as well. So do I use that data? Can I rely on that data? Probably not so much anymore because it's fairly easy to fake. And what we've become accustomed to, I guess, is focusing on individual channels. How does the paid perform? How does my banner adverts perform? How do my email marketing campaigns perform? And we look at all of those things in silo without necessarily thinking about the users that sit behind that. So it's about, for me, it's about creating a business which is not reliant so much on Google, but actually has a fundamental strategy in place with all the pieces of the puzzle put together. And I think at the moment, what I see in digital marketing is there is that fundamental piece of the strategy and the vision and the people missing, because we're focusing too much on the data and we're focusing too much on the individual channels rather than thinking about the people that sit behind that. And another thing I think which is time to change is the fact that certainly digital marketing sits in the marketing team. It has sometimes sat in the IT team. Certainly a few years ago, it was very much the IT conversation we used to have about websites rather than marketing. But if you're going to be sticking around to listen to Luke, he does an amazing talk about social media in a minute. Digital marketing in the digital world is so pervasive now that it has to, in my opinion, sit further up in the business. So it has to sit almost at board level, almost at management level, rather than be treated as this separate thing that's just there to generate business for us. Because no matter who works in your company, they can probably be talking about your business online at any point. Again, Adriano talked about this 24/7 thing. Everyone is online. Everyone is online even more than they were a year ago, 6 months ago. So that could affect any business in the room today if you have employees. So about how do we bring digital marketing further up, I think it has to sit much more at the heart of the business and sit higher up, at the sort of Alan Sugar level. And why I think people are so important is because we're getting to a point now where we can have that one-to-one relationship. And as Adriano alluded to, I've got this slide which was from a Google event they held in King's Cross about 6 months ago, where they and the IAB put some data together to suggest that search marketing, the one thing that Google generates virtually all of its money from, in 6 years' time, 7 years' time, will be redundant. well, let's say redundant, but it will be much less important. The thing which will be really, really important is audience targeting. Understanding of people, understanding of audiences online, and getting the maximum from that. And if we leave our digital footprint on our phones and on our computers everywhere, then profiling people will be much easier. The mechanics of how we do that, you can already do with Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook already, but that's just going to become much, much more powerful. So we don't need to think so much about search keywords and search strings. The thing that's going to make our business successful is understanding the people as much as possible. That comes through gut instinct, meeting them face to face in a room like this, and also collecting data to try and back up some of those decisions. So you already talked about Google now. You know, this is the technology which preempts what you want before you actually want it. If you're happy to trade in all your information to someone like Google in return for these sorts of services, then it's a fantastic way to live your life. I think there's going to be some privacy concerns around this in a few years' time, but there certainly are now, but it become more prominent. But if you give Google all your information, it can do this sort of thing. You know, it knows where you are, it knows where you live, it knows where you work, it knows what route you take every day generally. If you leave for work 5 minutes late, it can tell you before you left, there's a traffic jam. You need to go through the New Forest to get home, or you need to go on the train because there's a traffic jam. Google can tell you all this stuff before you actually need it. So for an advertiser, if I know that Andy needs to drive back to Salisbury tonight, well, perhaps I even know, because it's a Google car, that he's running out of petrol, it can start to show me adverts for petrol stations on the way home, or that sort of level of detail can be automated, and you've got the ability to do that. All you need to do is really, really understand your audience. And this is a fascinating thing. I'm going to create a blog post around this because it's probably where Google is heading much more than search. So to think about things to change and change your view now, I think as marketeers we need to understand numbers, but not swear by them. And I've seen lots of cases where the data says this, we must do this. Well, actually, the experienced head or the more rounded vision of the data you've got will actually lead to a different decision. So making decisions just by numbers, I think, is potentially foolhardy. So we should be using them to back up our decisions and not necessarily make them. We need more understanding of the markets, users and businesses to get best results. So how we get to those people isn't really the most important thing. It's who are we trying to target, and why are we here as a business, and how are we helping that person, and what things can we do to give them some great experiences, great content, rather than worrying about too much the channel that we're using to get those people to come to us. So our ideas and strategy should always, always, always be about our people and our audience, and not necessarily about the routes that we take, which is, I say, traps we've seen people fall into before. So I think we can do better. I think as digital marketeers, as business owners, as visionaries within our companies, I think we can do better. And that's coming back to many, many levels up from digital marketing, looking at pay-per-click. What is the vision of the business? What are we trying to achieve? Have we got that really, really clear as a company? Have we got that really clear as a marketing department? And have we got it really clear about who exactly it is we're trying to serve? Do we know who all of these people are? Can we create personas for them? Are we thinking about everything we're doing, trying to improve their lives in the way that Google is, so that we get competitive advantage? And if we're not thinking about that, and we're too worried about thinking about keywords or click-through rates on email campaigns, and I think we're taking the wrong approach. That is all important, but I think the way you're going to get the best value is taking it that level up, as I said before. So as marketeers, I think we need to take the Swiss Army knife approach to digital marketing. And what I mean by that is we need to have this thing in our pocket, our digital marketing tool set. We need to know what all of those things do, and we need to understand them, but we need to know when to use them and for what purpose we're using them and what we're trying to achieve. So to try and take that analogy forward, if I know that I've got like a search marketing campaign, I know that I can use my search marketing tool, my search marketing knowledge to make that happen, because I know what thing I'm trying to achieve. If the goal is much, much bigger, I as a marketer need to understand the size of the goal, the size of the problem, and I need to employ potentially the right person to do that job for me, because my Swiss Army knife, all my knowledge that I know of, isn't going to cut it, excuse the pun. So it's about thinking about knowing about all these different channels, knowing how they work, but really, really being clear about what the end goal is we want to try and achieve and who we're trying to serve that need for. And then if we are expecting our own knowledge and limits to be reached, then using other experts to make sure what we need to happen happens, rather than trying to do everything ourselves. So data is really important. We need to have a real understanding of our users, but I think in a crowded marketplace where we're spending so much time online, where our business and the business down the road and the business in the next city are all doing very similar things, and they're all getting online and using LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook and the websites, etc. How do we stand out? How can we do things better for our audience and to get more traction? Well, I think creativity is the one thing that we need to be doing better, the one thing we need to be spending more time on and maybe investing more, perhaps, budget into. So creativity, it says here, is intelligence having fun. If I know my people I want to target and I've got some good data to back that up and make some decisions around that, let's have some fun with that. Don't produce dry content that people don't really want to read. You have to engage with people, do things in a different way. Have some fun with it and you'll stand out from the crowd. And I also think that means perhaps being courageous at times and being bold, because if there are, in our world, there are 300 creative agencies in Dorset. So why do people want to come and work to us? Well, we're being courageous today. We've booked this venue. We've booked some great speakers, and we're trying to get people here to listen to those speakers and change their ideas potentially. Most of the other agencies are not doing that, but we're being bold. We're taking those steps, and hopefully that, in the long term, will pay back for us. But what else can you do for your business? What things can you do to improve the customer experience and the user journey? It doesn't have to be big, massive things. It doesn't have to require lots of investment. Work with video companies who can produce things for not a huge amount of money nowadays. We can build widgets that don't cost a lot of money but can be really, really useful for your audience. And I think creativity is just going to be the thing that brings out your business, brings your brand to life, and gets you ahead of the competition. So I can talk about all this stuff, but I think it really helps if you can see a real-world example of creativity coming through and a business having some fun to get a message across. So I found a really good one, again, just by chance whilst putting this together. It is a big brand that I'm going to show you now, but I don't think this is unachievable for any of these businesses, any business in the room here today. You could do something like this, very similar, and get some cut through. To summarise, the key points I'm trying to get you to think about here is digital marketing has changed fundamentally. The digital world has changed unrecognisably in the last 5 to 10 years, and it will continue to do so. So we can't think in the way that we have in the past. We need to adapt our thinking, adapt our approach, and by doing that we will be successful and we will get ahead of our competitors. I think also we need to think more about our audiences and less about algorithms, less about trying to game systems. People are online, people are doing things online, and we really spend quite a lot of time thinking about those people because they are the future of the web, and it's not so much about pages or documents, it's about the people and how do we connect to those people using some of the ideas we have in our company, and how can we improve their experience. That's what we fundamentally need to be thinking about. Thirdly, I think digital marketing needs to come further up within a business because it does touch, certainly the digital world will touch every part of the company. We've seen companies' share prices being affected by social media, and that's a very scary thing. Why is that happening? Why is that trend becoming bigger and potentially more real to the smaller businesses, in the UK? It's because digital marketing's been ignored. It's been left in the silo, and I think it needs to come much more central to the vision of the company, and certainly from a marketing perspective as well. And the final thing is, to be creative. There's no problem with being creative. If you take a chance, you be bold. What's the worst that can happen? Yes, you may fail in a marketing campaign, but you can learn from that. You can collect data from that. And if you don't try anything new and you don't try anything bold, then your growth is going to be very stagnant. You won't get the incremental or big growth that you want by doing things slightly differently or thinking outside of the box. And to encapsulate that, just think of the chicken. So that's my thoughts on how I think we can do digital better and how I think digital marketing can be made easier. Thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day.